may we think about joy. And what a joy it really is to have a living prophet, to be able to stand and raise our hands and talk about the Lord being with us and what it's like to have a prophet amongst us. And our great challenge at this time, if we are going to say the Lord is come in our lives, what a challenge that is to learn how to follow a prophet, not casually. Your generation cannot do it just in case you hear what he happens to be saying, but needs to lengthen your stride and be actively and exactly following the things he counsels us to do with a greater exactness and a greater enthusiasm than ever. Is that easy? No, it's never been easy. We can turn to the Old Testament to talk about that. Now, I recognize that many of you are freshmen, and as soon as I say Old Testament, some of you say, oh no, long-haired, long beards, old dudes, blah. The Old Testament's not really about that. Some of these people were young adults living at home, just about your age. The one we're going to talk about today was just about your age when the Lord called him to be a prophet. For 3 chapters, he said, and continued to do that. He could not believe the Lord would call him to be a prophet. When finally he settled down with the fact that the Lord really wanted him to be a prophet, he got some very interesting assignments. His first was to go out beyond the walls of the house, chop down the groves of trees, chop down the idol, burn up the whole place, and come back home. Why would he do such a thing? Because those idols in those days had 2 purposes, immorality and child sacrifice. And the Lord couldn't stand it anymore and sent a young man just your age to go out and take care of that. And so he went out and chopped down. It says he took 10 of his friends and went and did as the Lord had commanded. The thing it doesn't say is they had the funnest young adult party they'd had in months. They chopped down the grove and burned up the idol and came back excited, and Gideon was standing at his front door when they walked by the next day to go out and worship. They went out and saw their place burned, marched right to his door and pounded on the door. Gideon's father answered the door. Then they said, "We want your son. He killed our God last night." Now, I don't know if the scriptures are ever hilarious to you, but that is absolutely hilarious to me. This 17-year-old boy standing there saying, "Yep, I did." I'm surprised his dad didn't say pretty powerful boy, huh? But he didn't. He said, "You've always told me your God's all-powerful. Why don't you let your God come kill my son?" And they said, "All right, Moloch on your son." And they all walked away. Gideon's father turned around and said, "Put her there, Gid." All right. And everything was just fine. Gideon didn't even get sick until he heard 135,000 Midianites are coming over the hill to come and destroy him. I had a chance to stand in that very valley and to walk over the hill and imagine 135,000 armed warriors coming to destroy Israel. They weren't used to following a prophet at this point in their history, so they gathered the biggest army they could, and they had 32,000. Any of you mathematicians here at Rick's will understand very quickly we're in trouble. 32,000 to 135,000, yet the prophet stood in front of them and said, "That's all right, the Lord's on our side, we're going to win. Would you go?" If Gideon were standing here and turned to you and said, "Let's go," would you go? Oh, I know you would. I can just see some of you. Yeah. Some of you say, "That's fine. Let's put the big guys in the front, and then I'll go. That's fine." But somehow you'd go, and with that faith. But then Gideon got his first message from the Lord. "Too many men, Gideon. Send some home." And he stood in front of them and said, "Any of you afraid to die? Go home." And 22,000 went home. And he had 10,000 left. Now how are you feeling? You are now the 10,000. Scriptures don't mean anything unless you live them. You put yourself in those shoes and imagine yourself watching 2/3 leave, and here you are standing there maybe wondering. When Gideon said, "Just the right size, don't worry, we can handle this problem. We're just outnumbered 14-1, it's all right." And then he got his second message. Too many men, he sent them to the brook to drink, and most of them dropped their weapons and drank, and some of them held their weapons and drank carefully, and those he kept, and the rest he sent home. And 9,700 went home. He had 300 people total. What would you say? It was just sticky. I didn't let go of it. Send me back to the brook. I didn't mean to know. But what would you say? To all of a sudden be there with the 300 and have this young prophet saying, "That's all right. The Lord's on our side. We're going to win. We're outnumbered 4 billion to 1, but it's all right. Because he said, the Lord has inspired me with a battle plan and we're going to win." Wouldn't you be interested to know the battle plan? We have an atomic bomb we're throwing over the hill, jumping in the Mediterranean and swimming for Italy. No, he said, "Bring your lanterns tonight in your hand with a picture of it so nobody can see you. Bring your trumpet in the other hand and we're going to go attack them." Lanterns, trumpets, and attack. That was the big threesome. How does it sound to you? Don't you think somebody would say, "Gideon, my music's bad, but it's not going to kill him"? I mean, what do you mean trumpet? Don't you want something of value here? No, you bring your lanterns and trumpets tonight. Would you go? Would it be hard? Can you imagine marching over the hill, standing 20 feet from an encampment of 135,000 trained warriors? And Gideon running by saying, "When I give you the high sign, uncover your lantern and blow your trumpet for all you're worth." That's all he said. Could you do it? I've stood in that valley. I've imagined in my mind, and I've asked myself the question, would I do it? And I'm so proud of those 300 because Gideon stood in front of him, smashed his pitcher, his light turned on, grabbed his trumpet, and 300 lights turned on. If I have a chance in the next life, I'm going to find him and thank him. Because they're a great example to me of somebody that's willing to follow a prophet with exactness, even when it might not have made all the sense they thought. But 300 lights turned on, and 300 trumpets started to blow, and all the noise started. A trumpet used to come in front of a whole battalion of army. Joshua carried 7 trumpets in front of 40,000 men. And suddenly they thought 300 battalions were descending upon them, and they're waking up in the middle of the night confused, and they hear all the noise, and they jump out with their swords and running out without their armor on, and nobody could tell who they were. Whoa, ah, oh, he looked familiar. Whoa, ah, and they started to have this massive battle. The greatest pep band in history, next to Rick's College, of course, is outside of camp going, go fight a win. All right? And they just play, and the battle goes on, and pretty soon the Midianites are running away from themselves, which is a long ways to run. And 300 men can stand and say some wonderful line like, we thank thee, O God, for a prophet. Because they were willing to follow him with exactness and do the kind of things he said. And what an example to us. And how are we doing at learning how to really realize that the Lord himself speaks through a prophet of God, and it's our job to learn to follow him. We are those people today. And we need to learn to follow him with exactness.